Whipple Family Misadventures, Book 1. Welcome to the Parent of an Alien Hedgehog Club, Chapter 20. Wade's rough day wasn't getting any better. As soon as they returned home, he found the front door was slightly ajar. A quick check of the house showed that nothing was missing. At least not anything that he could tell. It still worried him. He always checked that the door was locked behind him, but he also had been pretty annoyed earlier. Had he been so angry he hadn't properly shut it, or had something else happened while they were at the station? Both boys were moping around long bouts of soul silence that made the house feel bigger than it was. Wade wasn't sure how he felt about that and decided that while both of them were still upset about what happened, and it made sense that they felt that way, he wasn't going to change his mind about grounding them to make them feel better. He has other things to worry about. Every so often, he checked his phone, hoping that Pete would contact him. There was no way that man had the afternoon he did, where he found out aliens existed and then decided to just do nothing with that information and go back to his regular life. Nothing. Wade wanted to call him again, but he also didn't want either Silver or Shadow to hear the conversation, and decided to wait until later. He was mulling the situation over when he noticed the time, 8:30, and how incredibly quiet the house was. That wasn't normal. Usually Wade had to be very on top of making sure both of them got ready for and then went to bed, because those two were happy to stay up as late as possible if allowed. Frowning, Wade got up and went to investigate. To his complete surprise, and for the first time since he met either of them, he found both already in bed earlier than normal. Silver took one look in his direction and yanked the blankets up to his chin immediately. Not sure what to say, Wade just stared at them.
All right,
He said as he realized he had an opportunity and shut their bedroom door. As long as they were safely in bed, then he had a moment to make another attempt at a phone call. Remembering how good their hearing was, he really needed to figure out how good. Wade put on a coat and stepped outside into the backyard, feeling the cold bite off the wind against his face as he did. The phone rang and rang. The phone rang and rang, like it did earlier, feeling like it was going to go ignored yet again. And then there was a click.
Who am I speaking to this time?
Wade nearly dropped his phone in surprise that he actually answered.
it's me this time.
He said, trying to keep his voice level and polite. There was a part of him that really wanted to mention how Pete had been duped by a couple of kids that sounded nothing like him or even like adults. But he kept that to himself. This conversation wasn't supposed to antagonize Pete.
I wanted to discuss what happened today. Are you okay?
It's interesting.
Pete said, his tone light and breezy, like they were discussing football or something else inane.
I've been trying to get in contact with you for a while and nothing's worked. Letters, calls, I even dropped in and you didn't want to see me. But as soon as those alien kids got you in your house and invited me over, Wade, you won't stop calling.
Wade gritted his teeth with the effort it took not to be snarky or rude.
Why do you have two alien children in your house, especially that calling you dad? I'm very confused about that.
It was deeply upsetting to learn they had told him that. Wade would have been happier if Pete hadn't been aware of that little fact.
Because I found them and they were both scared and lost. I wasn't going to leave a couple of kids to fend for themselves out in the snow.
Pete grunted.
Are you sure they're safe to be around? Because I did not get that impression. Those things seem dangerous.
Of course they are, and they are not things.
Huh, does the government know about this?
Wade didn't answer.
I figured.
They're not dangerous, nor are they a threat to anyone. They're just a couple of little kids.
Since Wade was confident that Pete didn't know their ages, he was going to play them up being harmless little kids as much as he could.
They tried to hold me hostage. You couldn't get inside because one of them used some crazy powers to move the furniture in front of the door so I couldn't leave.
Wade's stomach sank.
And I'm deeply sorry about that. They were just curious about who you were. They weren't trying to hurt you in any way. Why did you come all the way from South Carolina?
North Carolina, and yes, I did have something I wanted to discuss with you. But after this, I'm not sure if I'm ready to talk to you yet.
What?
What's today, Tuesday? I'll call you back on Saturday, Wade. After today, I need a few days to get my thoughts in order. What happened was highly unexpected, and I'm just not in the right position to properly discuss it yet.
Wade's heart was racing.
Whatever you want to discuss, we can discuss it now.
Pete's voice became almost chipper as he knew he had the upper hand.
No, I have been trying to reach out, putting a lot of effort into reaching you, and I haven't gotten much of a response. I think it's your turn to wait.
Wade rubbed at his temple.
Why are you doing this? Just why?
Saturday, maybe we can meet up for coffee. Do you drink coffee? I just realized I don't know that about you. If not, maybe we can get tea. Anyway, please don't contact me before then.
With that, the call ended. Bleakly, Wade gazed down at his cell phone for several moments of disbelief before he slowly trudged back inside. He could hardly believe this was happening. If anything, this was an excellent reminder why his decision to avoid Pete's calls and toss his letters away unopened had been a good one. After a quick phone call to Tom to update him on the situation, he put his phone on the charger and went to go check on the boys. Both were still in bed and neither as much as twitched when he opened the door. They were either asleep or faking it. For a moment, Wade just stood there and watched. Another time, he would have thought it was rather cute how small both of them were in such large beds, made for human children. But tonight, he could only wonder how either of them felt when they went to bed. How he didn't even say goodnight. Maybe he wasn't doing as good of a job as he thought he was. Maybe he wasn't a good dad after all and was destined to become as terrible as Pete had always been. With a sigh, Wade gently shut their door and went back to his own bedroom and collapsed on his bed, exhaustion threatening to overtake him. Hopefully tomorrow would be better. At minimum, it couldn't get any worse. The next day did not start off better. Wade was up first and was preparing his coffee in the kitchen with Shadow soaking in behind him, grabbing only a banana and leaving just as quick. While that on its own wasn't particularly odd, the way Shadow kept his eyes down, head bowed without making a sound was. When Silver came out of the bedroom, he barely ate anything, only a few bites of toast, silently before he made an escape. Neither of them said anything to each other or him, like living with silent cats that took off every time you so much as glanced towards them. After so many days of taking steps forward, it felt that they had gone 15 steps back. Wade imagined this is how astronauts felt when they were in space. Each person was bundled into their own spacesuit, with their own pocket of air, separate from everyone else. You can see the others, but that was it. Totally cut off from them in every other way. He wasn't sure what to do. Was this because he grounded them? He wasn't going to apologize for disciplining them, but beyond that notion, he had no ideas where to even start with this. After he finished his coffee and got dressed, Wade decided it would be helpful to give both of them some space as he went outside and shoveled the snow for a while. If nothing else, it gave him some time to think. When Wade was finished clearing a walkway and his driveway, he came in and found Silver lying on his belly on the couch, using a pen to scribble over a piece of paper.
What are you drawing?
Wade asked, taking care to ensure his tone was friendly. The gray hedgehog jumped and shoved it away before sliding off the couch, almost cowering away from him.
Nothing.
He muttered, averting his gaze as he started to slink off. That made Wade very worried. He had understood it yesterday, as things had still been tense, but today was unusual.
Hey, Silver, wait.
He said, stepping right in Silver's path before he could go anywhere, blocking him from getting away.
What's going on?
No answer. Slowly, Wade knelt down.
Silver, what's going on?
The gray hedgehog looked like a puppet whose strings had been cut, so miserable and wounded as he stared down at the floor, as if he'd been defeated. The poor kid had no poker face whatsoever, and it was so clear that there was something bothering him. He was a completely open book and wore his heart on his sleeve at all times. It was interesting. No one had ever told him that he had to try this, and his emotions, like someone had obviously done to Shadow. Suddenly, it occurred to Wade that maybe they hadn't told him everything that happened the day before with Pete, and were scared to bring it up. He knew in the moment that no matter how bad it was, that he would have to stay calm. Because in the future, if and when horrible things happened, he wanted them to come to him with his problems, not hide them away.
I promise I won't be mad, but I need you to tell me, so I can help you.
Silver started to tremble, looking up just as the first tear left his eyes, rolling down his muzzle and into his chest fur.
I'm sorry.
He choked out, horribly confused. Wade just stared at him.
About what, yesterday?
Instead of answering, Silver just started to sob. Still very confused, Wade rocked back on his heels and reached out to hug him, as Silver moved into his arms and began to bawl into his chest.
It's okay.
He muttered, becoming more and more worried. Whatever this was had to be awful. 4 long minutes passed as Wade gently rubbed circles between the hedgehog's shoulder blades, careful to avoid the little spines as Silver continued to cry. Every second was extremely difficult for Wade to hear. He had heard it was hard to listen to children cry, but this was close to torture. To know his child was in obvious pain, and there wasn't an immediate answer or way for him to fix it. There was a tiny bit of doubt in the back of his mind that wondered if this was a manipulation or a show to get out of their grounding. But then again, the poor kid looked and sounded so unhappy, almost as if he was in physical pain. If this had happened yesterday, he would have suspected it more. But not now. Finally, the little hedgehog slumped against him, his cries turning into shuddering hiccups. Carefully, Wade shifted him so that he was cradling and stood up to save his aching knees.
I can't read your mind, buddy. You gotta tell me what's wrong so I can help you.
Did you make a decision yet?
Wade paused as he had been heading for the kitchen to give Silver some water and a tissue for his face.
I already told you. Remember, yesterday, being grounded?
No, you said you didn't know what to do with us.
I'm not following you. I already told you what I decided.
You said you were going to make a decision on what to do with us. I want to stay here. Please. Please, I'll be better. Please. Whatever you want, please. I want to stay here. I don't want to leave.
There was a desperation that said if Wade demanded he throw himself into the wall to be allowed to stay, he would have done it. Wade stopped dead.
No, that's...
Absolute dread washed over him like if someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over his head.
No, that's not what I meant.
One look at the hedgehog in his arms, who started to sob again, and Wade fully understood why he had been so miserable, why he had barely eaten anything at breakfast, and had been sulking around because he fully believed in what he just said. His own thought he might get rid of him.
Silver, listen to me.
Wade said, putting his hands under his son's chin and tilting it up so that he had eye contact.
That was not what I meant. I am not getting rid of you or Shadow. I promise.
He hugged him gently, hopefully tight enough so there wasn't any room left for doubt. Suddenly, a different thought struck him, one that was just as awful.
Does Shadow feel the same way?
The gray hedgehog nodded slightly. That was almost more than Wade could take. The idea that both of them were suffering and anguishing under that false idea.
Shadow?
After a few seconds, the darker hedgehog peeked out of the bedroom, his eyes full of worry.
Come on out here, we're going to talk about something.
Wade said. When there was no movement, he kept talking.
You're not in trouble. In fact, the opposite of that. Come here.
He said as he gently set Silver onto the couch. Slowly, Shadow padded into the living room and pulled himself up onto the couch, giving Silver a short glance. He said nothing, but open fear was written into his features. In his lap, he wrung his hands, a never-ending restless ritual.
Silver told me.
That was as far as Wade got before he realized he couldn't stand over them and insisted on sending down next to Silver.
No one is going anywhere. When people become a family, it's not for a period of time or until something better comes around. You two are not a shirt or something else that I'm going to throw out when I get tired of you. You're my sons, and you're going to stay here with me because I love you.
Really?
Really?
Wade said as tears started to build in his own eyes and escaped before he could wipe them away.
I love you guys so much. Even though what you did wasn't okay and I wasn't happy about it, I still love you, and I'm never going to get rid of either of you, ever.
There was something slightly awkward for Wade to say that out loud, especially in a culture where it wasn't fully accepted to be emotional. Men were told to be tough, not sensitive, and to be constantly sharing emotions. But he also was aware that he was all these two had, and they both deserved to be told they were loved and wanted and cared about just as much as if they had a female parent. He still saw the equal parts of hope and fear on Silver's face.
What if we're too much?
Wade looked back at him seriously.
You won't be.
No, it might still happen.
I already know that neither of you are ever going to be too much. I promise. Because you're never too much for someone that you love. And I love you both, guys.
Shadow gazed back at him, looking like he wanted to believe it so desperately, but just didn't know if he could actually believe it or not.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Wade said, offering out an arm to each to hug both of them. Silver accepted immediately, but the darker hedgehog hesitated and half turned away, his gaze staring at the floor.
Shadow? What's wrong?
Is this real? Not a joke?
It's not a joke.
Shadow's eyes shut.
If it is, just say so and…
It's not a joke, or a prank, or anything else. I promise. When I say forever, I mean that.
This time, when he held out an arm out to the black hedgehog, Shadow slowly moved towards him and allowed himself to be hugged, shoving his face into Wade's chest. Wade wiped out his eyes again with the back of his hand.
It's okay to be emotional. It can feel like a lot.
He said, his other arm still around Silver and closed his own eyes. There were moments in life that people knew that they would never forget, and he was fully aware that this was going to be one of those.
Dad?
Automatically, Wade started to answer without even opening his eyes, before his mind caught up and he realized that it wasn't Silver who asked that. It had been Shadow. There was another wonderful, powerful wave of emotion, but it was a good one. The kind that secretly made him want to jump off of the roof and scream with joy. Not that he would ever tell any of them that.
Yes, buddy?
He said, looking directly down at Shadow.
I'm sorry about making you upset yesterday.
Silver looked up.
Me too.
While I accept both of your apologies, do you both understand why I was upset and what you did wrong? Like, really understand? It's okay if you don't. We can talk about it.
Shadow nodded, shifting so he was back to sitting on the other side of Wade, back on the couch.
Disobedience is a trait that is never valued or accepted.
Wade stared at him.
While that is technically true, that is also horrifying how you phrase that. But yeah, I don't set these rules because I feel like being a jerk or because I want to be controlling. Taking something that belongs to me exclusively, like my phone, it upsets me because I don't want it broken or lost or anything to happen to it. I also felt angry that you two planned it for when I was gone. It felt like you knew that what you were doing was wrong and were being sneaky. Finally, not everyone is okay with the fact that you guys are alien hedgehogs and are here on Earth. We know that people here in town can be trusted, but that doesn't mean everyone can be. That's why I don't want either of you to open the door if I'm not here. I need to make sure that the person is safe first.
Pete said he was your dad. Can't we trust him?
Wade blew a very long sigh as he had deeply hoped Pete hadn't told them that. That one thing made Shadow frown as well.
Was he lying? He had that plastic card and his name.
No, he wasn't lying, at least in some manner. Yes, Pete is my biological father, but I don't have any kind of relationship with him. and I don't think I ever will. I might be related to him, but he's not my dad.
That confused both of them. It was almost adorable. Both hedgehogs tilted their heads to the left, nearly in sync.
Why?
Well, because look at you two. I'm not related to either of you in any way, shape, or form. But I'm still your dad, right? Not because of blood, but because I chose to be. And I happen to think the reverse of that is also true. I might be related to him, but blood doesn't make him my father.
Shadow chewed on his lip for a moment as he considered that.
Can I ask why, or is that another thing to mind our own business about?
Well, okay, I appreciate that you asked. However, about we can talk about this today, but after this, I don't want to talk about it anymore, because it was really painful to me, and it's not fun to think about.
They both gazed back at him, their expressions worried but listening.
When I was very little, younger than either of you, I was with both my parents. They didn't live together, but I spent time with them both equally. And then one day, Pete left. He moved away because he wasn't in love with my mother anymore, and he got a new girlfriend. And I didn't see him anymore after that.
Silver's expression fell.
He just left? Without saying goodbye?
No, he didn't. I did talk to him on the phone sometimes, but he was usually busy. It didn't happen a lot. Then when I was 12, 4 years later, he was getting married, and for the first time, he wanted me to come out and visit him. But by that point, I was angry and upset, and I said no, and I haven't talked to him since. Until recently.
Why did you do that?
Lifting one shoulder in a shrug was the only answer Wade could give.
Because he's self-absorbed and a jerk? I'm not sure. But he's not my dad, and it's taken a long time. But I've reached to the point that I've accepted that, and dealing with him more is just rubbing salt in the wound. I did want to ask though, why did you guys tell him you were holding me hostage?
Shadow looked over at Silver, who folded his ears down.
He said that we were your pets. I didn't like that.
I see. While it's understandable to dislike being called that, you can't say stuff like that. What if he took that seriously and thought someone needed to rescue me? Some people will already be a bit nervous because you two are not human. You cannot give them a reason to think you're dangerous.
Okay, I can tell him I didn't mean it. He said he wanted to talk to you.
I'm sure he does, but I'm kind of past the point of listening, and I don't want him around either of you anymore. But what I'm saying originally about him is that I know what it's like to be abandoned. I know what it feels like to wait and hope, to stare out of a window for hours, and finally realize that he's not coming back. And I'm not going to do that.
You said family is forever. But Pete didn't want to be?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. He left me, so I stopped waiting around for him to come back. However, there is something that's kinda concerning to me, and I think I need to do something about it. I don't want either of you to doubt that this isn't temporary. So, I think we should make it official.
Both of them blinked at him.
Here on Earth, there's a way to adopt someone. It's more than just telling them that you want to be family and saying I'm your dad now. It's a process, a whole legal process with paperwork and judges, and lots of other stuff. It will take a long time, like over a year, but it also makes it official and legally forever. It will be difficult, but I think since I'm a police officer and know parts of the legal system and people in it, that I can make it work. How does that sound?
How would it?
I'd have to explain to a few people about you guys, but neither of you would have to worry about it, or about being abandoned. In fact, after I adopt you, I can't abandon either of you, because if I did, I'd go to jail. It's illegal to abandon your kids here on Earth.
That made Shadow's eyes grow wide.
Tom would arrest you and put you into that huge cage?
In a way. By the way, did neither of you know about that? Know about my job? That was what I did?
In retrospect, he should have realized that, as he had never explained it, and the chance of either of them being aware of police officers was pretty low.
You put people in cages?
No, I make sure people follow the rules. Kinda like I do with you guys, but bigger rules. Sometimes more important rules.
Shadow and Silver looked at each other.
So you're a dad here at home and a dad at work?
That made Wade smile.
In a way, but back to what I was saying. You guys want that? Make it official? It also means you two won't get to change your names. You will have my last name, and then everyone will know we're family.
Yes!
Silver cried as Shadow nodded vigorously. So eagerly, no doubt, no hesitation from either of them. That alone brought tears to Wade's eyes again.
All right.
He said tenderly. Later that evening, Wade was still thinking about that conversation they had earlier in the day. There was a notion in the back of his mind that it might not have been enough, and it had made him seek out one final thing, just in case.
Hey, Silver, I want to talk to you.
Wade waited until he put down his Legos and came over.
I got something for you.
Really? For me?
Silver bounced on the balls of his feet, already getting back to his normal, happier self.
If it's another stuffed animal, he can't be on my bed because it might make my other plush jealous.
It's not, but if you want another stuffed animal, maybe I'll get you some for your birthday.
He took a tiny object out of his pocket with a bit of a flourish and offered it over. The gray hedgehog took it and frowned at it curiously, holding it in front of its face.
What is it?
It's a key to the front door. I know that you're afraid that I'm going to kick you out, and while I can say 1,000,000 times that I'm not going to, I thought maybe this will make you feel better. Because if you have a key, you can always come back in.
The fear of abandonment wasn't just an idea that had been planted in Silver's head, but one that had grown into a full-fledged tree. Wade had wondered why, even though he had assured it several times, he wasn't enough. But he realized, like a tree, it would take more than a few wags to knock it down. He needed more than just words of reassurance. Those gold eyes grew wide.
It is?
Yeah, this is your home now, kiddo, and you're my family, forever and always. And family members get a key.
That time he was ready for and expecting the hug, and picked Silver up, settling him into his arms as he rocked him back and forth gently.
I promise I won't make you leave. You'll always be able to come back in.
Did Shano get a key too?
Yep, he's going to get one as well. I do want you to be careful with this and try not to lose it. But if you do, it's not a huge deal. I can always get you another one.
Okay.
Silver muttered, his head resting on Wade's shoulder as his eyes slowly drifted shut. Wade just kept rocking him, hoping that this small gesture would help heal some deeply embedded pain and fear.